to the Onyx Pathcast. I'm this week's host, Dixie Cochran, here with Matthew Dawkins.
Hello.
And Eddy Webb.
Hello.
And this week we're going to talk about kind of a delicate and interesting subject, which is harassment. I think a lot of us are going to speak mostly to within our own industry, just because that's what we're most familiar with. But the topic of harassment in general is something that a lot of creators have been talking about for, years now on Twitter, whether it's comics creators, games creators, whatever. There's a wider topic of conversation here that is definitely very present and very new, but kind of all over the place. And, it's partially been helped by the easy access people have to creators now. I would say. I know that I'm sure Eddy can talk about this, the amount of, harassment y'all got in the 90s and 2000s at White Wolf versus the harassment that, you can get now just by going on Twitter. I would say it's probably orders of magnitude greater.
Well, I mean, it goes kind of both directions. Like, Usenet was very popular with White Wolf back in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Right.
And so... because that was the way you talk to creators, there was a lot more of it. And also, it wasn't really moderated in the way that we understand it now.
Well, true.
So, I mean, it's basically take the social media we have now, cut it down to like 5% of what it was, but then put it all into one area. It's going to feel still very heavily compressed. And also, on top of that, no one really knew what to do in there. I mean, so like creators sometimes didn't have good responses because they would speak the way they spoke, say, in the office or at a convention, and that doesn't always come across well on screen. So that didn't help matters sometimes.
True.
So it is a weird case where it's like, I would say that definitely it's more omnipresent now.
Yeah, I think that's more what I meant is like, it seems like you can get it from all angles all the time, 24 hours a day, notifications on your phone kind of thing.
Yes.
And we'll get into that in a minute. I want to say right up top before I super get into the discussion that in this episode, when I say women, I'm referring to women, trans women, non-binary femme folks, etc. And when I say men, same deal. Like trans men are men, non-binary butch people are men, mask presenting anybody. So just want to get that language out of the way before anybody thinks that we're doing like a super gender binary thing. Because I know quite a few like trans women who get just as harassed, if not more, than cis women. So yeah,
totally. And actually, before you dive in, also, I want to point out that it's been 3 minutes, and we've actually not screwed up this intro once, which is a huge success for us, I think.
Well, that's it. Let's break out the champagne and end this episode now.
I can open a soda. Will that have the same effect as breaking open champagne here?
Oh, very nice.
That was a very nicely captured sound effect there.
Foley effects. I feel harassed right now, Matthew. No, I don't want to make light of it. But for real, though, so this is a topic that I know a couple of our guests have touched on here and there, some more than others. But I know that it's something that you two have both experienced as well. And actually probably because you're both a little bit more visible than I am. Like on the internet, and you've been going to conventions longer. Matthew has a YouTube channel. I think you probably both experienced it more than me, which is an interesting position for me to be in as the woman on this podcast. Because usually when you see in the news or see on Twitter, it's always stories of women creators or designers or artists or whatever, typically getting harassed by men for various reasons, whether we're talking sexual harassment or whether we're talking threats. It's all, there. I will go ahead and also say there is somebody mowing a lawn near me. So if anybody hears it on the podcast, I apologize. It's very hard to cut out the outdoors. Sitting next to a window.
As much as we would like to.
Yeah, likewise, there's a wretched child near my house. I'm sure he's lovely, bouncing a ball and occasionally going past my house. And I'm just staring evilly from the top floor, hoping that he catches the gaze of not the creepy man, that would be wrong. The evil man, the evil writer, housebound. Anyway. Yeah. But yes, I think definitely we've all experienced harassment, and some certainly more than others. And I I guess even getting into this hobby, I experienced harassment. I think a lot of people did. We've discussed before.
I have more stories as a player experiencing harassment than I do as a creator, honestly.
I think one of my most embarrassing moments to do with gaming in general, or in my life, was to do with gaming and being a part of this hobby. And it was a really humiliating thing, or it felt like it at the time. And it was due to harassment from people that I assumed I could trust. And going on from there, harassment due to having the YouTube channel, the Gentleman Gamer YouTube channel. That was my first exposure to harassment based on being a personality. And I should, I guess, hasten to add that saying that it was due to having a YouTube channel almost puts the blame on me, saying, I put myself out there, I was therefore owed a certain amount. And it's very easy to fall into that trap. And of course, I wasn't responsible for being harassed. It just is far easier, I guess, for harassers to target people who make themselves personalities. And I got a few notable occasions. I picked up a stalker who sexually harassed me for some time, and to the point that this person, who didn't live anywhere near me, managed to find out where I was working at the time, and because I was rebuffing all advances, stated that she would turn up outside my workplace and with a knife and be waiting for me outside the front door. And that's when it got to the point of seriousness. This was, I guess, about 8 years ago now, but it's stuck
terrifying.
with me.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, it was. It definitely was. But I also remember doing a review of Grey Ranks, which is an indie game some listeners may have heard of, where you play children in the Warsaw Ghetto. It's, of course, very dark, serious material, and is written as such. And I did a review of it on my YouTube channel, where I sang the praises of this game. I thought it handled the material admirably. And a whole branch of neo-Nazis and Holocaust deniers swarmed onto the comments section and started saying, we're going to tear down your entire channel. You've bought into the left wing or Western European and American lies and all the rest of this nonsense. And my fans, my followers, started battling them in return. And for a while, I just turned the comments off on the video. I thought, I don't want my channel to become this. But the YouTube channel certainly drew a certain amount of harassment, but of course writing and developing RPGs has as well. Yeah.
So before we go too far into just like telling anecdotes about ourselves, I do want to say, like, do you have any thoughts, Eddy specifically, but either of you, where the line falls from criticism to harassment? Because obviously criticism is fine. We're totally fine accepting criticism of our games, of our playstyles, of anything that we put out there in the world. Most of us are capable of taking actual, constructive criticism. I realize the word there is constructive. But even some level of complaining or of not liking a thing, totally fine. Like, not everything is for everybody. I'm not upset if someone thinks that a game that I make sucks compared to another game, because that's their opinion. But when does it cross the line to you? Like, I'm sure you saw that both on the old Usenet and today on Twitter,
Yeah, and it's tricky, honestly, because I think everyone draws that line a little differently, especially in a creative industry like this. I mean, if I'm doing work for hire work on a project where I'm one of like 5 writers on a project and people have criticisms of a game, even if it's the stuff I've worked on, that feels different to me than someone criticizing, say, Pugmire, because there's so much more of me in that game. There's my dogs in that game. There's my family in that game in some respects. But I mean, from an objective level, I think the clear line is one of the clear lines is whether you're criticizing the product or the person behind the product.
True.
And it seems obvious, but it's actually not the more you dig into it. Like, if someone says, the people who were behind the Masquerade are neo-Nazis, as a random example, that's criticizing the people. That's not criticizing the material. That's a personal attack. Saying this Vampire the Masquerade material encourages neo-Nazis gets blurrier.
Right.
Because, I mean, it's talking about the material, but still making an assumption. And I don't know if that's true or not.
I think
so it's
saying
kind of hard
something
to
like this material can be interpreted as
Right.
doing that thing is a little bit more constructive, because then you're going like, hey, in case you didn't notice, this
Right.
could be taken this way. You might want to fix it. Because we've had that happen a few times on Exalted books and on other books that I've worked on, where it's been through 8 sets of eyes, and the 9th set of eyes went, ooh, this can be interpreted as really sexist if you read it this way. And we went, oh, okay, let's change the wording, you know?
Absolutely. I know when I worked on Lore of the Clans, I had someone of Romney descent contact me and said, FYI, the G word that you're using prevalently to describe the Ravnos is actually a racial slur. Could you please could you please remove it? It's been frustrating to see this throughout White Wolf's history, and I would appreciate if you tried to remove it. And to me, that was firmly on the side of constructive criticism. It didn't say White Wolf are racist assholes. It didn't say you're a racist asshole. It just said, you may not be aware this has racial overtones. And I wasn't
Right.
aware at the time. And I was like, great. And I took it back. And then I since got some harassment from people saying, well, free speech and, you should be able to say what you want to. It's like, it's true. And what I'm choosing to say is that we're not using this word anymore. You can't defend my creative freedom and then also lambaste me for making the choice I'm using with my creative freedom.
Yeah, no, same with some of the terms that we've used in other lines. It's the same exact thing where it's like, well, we decided to do it this way because we'd rather be inclusive and non-offensive.
Right. So for me, what I've kind of settled on personally is whether the comment implies malice. Because, I mean, it's one thing to say everyone makes mistakes. And certainly I've had some really fantastic criticism that's along the lines of like, hey, this is like when I was first doing Pugmire, I showed it to a couple of people before I started doing the Kickstarter. And I had some people of color come up to me and had some very great conversations about the use of the word race. This is before Pathfinder and D&D had changed the word race out. And so I was like one of the first people to have the conversation, and I was like, this is really, really great. And then it came to me in a way that was like going, we're not assuming what the context of this is, the context of this is. Since then, other people have made other comments about my work that do assume that I have an agenda or malice. And sometimes that agenda is valid. Like, yes, in case it's not clear, we are a left-leaning company as a general rule.
Yeah, pretty much everybody that works here is fairly left-leaning. Yeah. Right.
So, I mean, if you're saying that, we have a generally left agenda, that's not entirely wrong. I mean, there are certain times where we try to paint a product to be more widely inclusive. But, I mean, sometimes it's a fair cop, and sometimes it's a fair cop for negative reasons. Like, I'm blind. I certainly have a lot of privilege, even though I'm disabled. I still have a lot of other white heterosexual male privilege, and I get blind occasionally. And I've had people, including people on this podcast, say, "Hey, maybe you shouldn't do that." And say, "Oh, okay, cool, great,"
Yeah.
But again, all that comes from a place of not assuming malice on the part of the writer. When you start doing, well, you're obviously X, or you're obviously Y, or obvious is usually a really big tell.
Yeah.
Because what's obvious is not actually really obvious.
Well, yeah, because I mean, I feel really comfortable coming to you and saying, "Hey, Eddie, I don't know if you know this, but this phrase is problematic," which I've done a couple times because you literally didn't know. That's because I know you. It's a little harder when you don't know the person. I understand to come to them. I've got podcasts that I listen to where some of the hosts occasionally say things that make me a little uncomfortable, even though I don't think they're doing it maliciously. And I've never quite figured out the right avenue to be like, "Hey, can you stop saying that everything is insane?" Like, that bothers me, you know, because they'll talk about a news story, like a wild, totally out there news story, and they'll be like, "Oh, it's insane. These people are insane." And I'm like, "Oh, I hate that. I hate that language." I didn't used to hate that language because I didn't know. And now I try really, really hard not to describe anything as crazy or insane or whatever, because that's ableist. And once you learn, you start noticing it everywhere. But like, yeah, there's definitely like stuff that is obviously malicious, and I wouldn't say it crosses into harassment, but sometimes there are things, because to me, harassment implies like either a prolonged thing or a campaign by more than one person. I think just making one comment is not harassment. It's just being shitty.
Right.
I know I saw recently somebody intimated that the developer of a book must have been dropped on their head as a child because they didn't understand the rules when they were surrounded by people who understood the rules.
Right.
and we're trying to patiently explain them. And it's like, that's not cool. Like, don't do that.
Right.
All of our developers are perfectly fine people, and you're being very rude. So,
and also, if they were dropped in their head, who cares if they did a good book? It doesn't matter,
Right,
Again,
exactly.
that goes back to the ableist implications.
Right. Matthew, did you have any thoughts on crossing the line?
Well, to be honest, I'm in large agreement with yourself and Eddy. It depends on how the criticism is phrased. It depends on the, I guess, density of it, how far people wish to push it. I don't know. I think you can still be harassed through, I guess, singular contact, especially if, in the case of, let's say I worked on V5, of course, and it was a book that certainly had its fair share of controversy surrounding it. And because of how that whipped so many people up into a frenzy, I was receiving messages from dozens of people who I never heard from again, but I received messages, I got emails criticizing me or basically making assumptions about me.
That's what I meant by a campaign. Like, I feel like brigading, even if it's a whole bunch of different individuals sending you one message apiece, that, like, either that or a prolonged thing are the two things that I think most people qualify as harassment.
That's fair.
Certainly it can happen from a single contact, but I think, like, one tweet does not harassment make. One tweet is just you being, like, having a shitty opinion. I think that, if you get 100 tweets leveled at you, that's a harassment brigade. And this is obviously different from things like sexual harassment, which can be one comment in context, whatever. Anyway, sorry. I have all these definitions in my head that maybe aren't correct, and I'm sure we'll get comments about this, and I'll be happy to look some of it up. But that's kind of how it plays in my mind.
No, I think that's perfectly sound reasoning, and I don't think there's much I can add to that other than to say that to anyone listening, I guess, who does have a major problem or even a minor problem with any of the books we produce or any of the content we produce, whether it's on this podcast or elsewhere, there's certainly a calm and you don't have to be kind, but there is definitely a constructive way of approaching someone and an aggressive, unpleasant way of approaching someone. And the general rule of thumb I've found is, and I know it sounds all very happy and ideal worldy, but the idea of talking to people as you would in real life is still a pretty good rule to stand by. There are very few people that would give you the amount of grief they do online if they were there in person. And quite often people will couch how they phrase their criticism with more apologies or a little more, I guess, caveat before they start saying what they feel is wrong. And people don't need to bend and grovel when they want to criticize work or even us as developers, but they would certainly benefit, and we would definitely benefit from a little more consideration.
Totally, yeah. I think there's definitely... I mean, that's been stated in most, cases, whether it's the Gamergate folks or whatever, is that the anonymity of the internet makes people very brazen when it comes to being able to throw, insults at somebody or stating their opinion in a way as to imply that, the creator is not good at their job or a bad person or what have you. Because even on Twitter and Facebook and stuff, where people are often using their real names, like on Facebook specifically, people will still leave comments in these big public threads knowing that they're not going to get many repercussions from it. Like, it is the rare person who, their job actually finds out and they're like, oh, you shouldn't work here anymore because you're a bad person. But, it's just a thing. It's a thing that the internet has birthed that I don't always love about it. But there it is.
Right. And I think that's actually... key to your point is that creatives like us, whether we're self-employed or working freelance, we are our job. And so there is more power to shut down someone like us because, I mean, it's you're right. I mean, going to someone who works at a Fortune 100 company and among the hundreds of thousands of employees and say, hey, I want to fire this guy. It's harder to do. It's possible. It certainly has happened, but sometimes harder to do. But one person that, for some reason, gets a brigade or a campaign against them, you can shut them down completely. I mean, a lot of us are working on thin margins as it is financially. Many of us also have extraneous bills like medical bills or whatnot. So it's a thin line. Sometimes a thin line is enough to just crush somebody. And so it's heartbreaking. And yet, sometimes, there are some people who genuinely feel like that person needs to stop making content and they just need to not be prolific anymore. And so it's tricky.
And sometimes people do genuinely need to stop making content and get out of the industry.
No, I agree.
Like there are definitely places where it is not harassment, but whistleblowing or speaking the truth, and that's fine. Like if people have actual information about someone doing bad things, I would like to know that so that we can take appropriate action. But yeah, if you're just hurling false allegations at people, that's not okay. Or just saying this person sucks and we should kick them out of their industry. That's also not great.
It is, and it could be, like I said, it's a very tricky line. It's like with the rise of Me Too, there are some creatives who have been, I think, correctly outed as being sexual predators. And you're right. I mean, those people need to go. And so it's great that we do have the tools to make sure those people don't threaten other people. But it's also, I didn't like what you read. I read something into your material that wasn't intended. So I'm going to assume it was intended, get a bunch of my friends together, and then make sure that you never write anything ever again without even clarifying that can be scary. So I mean, it's a tricky line. I mean, I would love to say that we're going to come away from this going, we have all the answers. It's exactly what you need to do. It's not. It's very fuzzy and it's very vague, and everyone has very different stances where everyone's lines are drawn are different. So it's a very challenging time.
Mm-hmm. Has that ever happened to you, Eddy? That you've had the bunch of people go after you and with the motive of trying to drive you out of the industry?
It has happened. Weirdly, not in tabletop RPGs. But it did happen to me in the Camarilla, the live action fan club. There were a bunch, right when I had gotten my job at White Wolf, there were a bunch of people who made the assumption that I got my job because I slept with people at White Wolf, which was very bizarre rumor. Maybe I slept with Justin and Kelly. I was never really clear on the point. But there were a bunch of people who assumed that I would then use my power to destroy all my in-game enemies in the live action group, and made a huge effort to try to get me removed from the organization for on unethical grounds that simply didn't exist. And I mean, how we ended up dealing with that was we actually I actually helped make a White Wolf specific live action chapter. It's like, there are a bunch of White Wolf employees we have specialized needs, we have specialized access to information that other members of the Camarilla don't have. So let's make a special chapter that is beholden to the bylaws of the organization. But there are certain things that, like you can't force our chapter to reveal like upcoming manuscripts kind of thing,
Right.
It's like you can't force us to violate our NDAs. And there's certain things that we're just not going to be able to report because at the end of the day, we're also the company over you. But as much as we can, we want to be beholden to your laws. And that helped a lot of it because I was actually the coordinator of the chapter. So I could say, it's like, here's that one, that someone threw an allegation against my wife at the time who was a high-level storyteller. So I said, cool, I'm not going to do this investigation in my chapter because it's clearly a conflict of interest.
Right.
Which also got people mad because I wasn't doing my job. It was a whole thing. It was a whole thing for a while.
Sometimes you just can't win. And
right.
that's always the hardest one for, like, when I see that going around is when you just can't win. I haven't had it happen to me specifically so much. But yeah, I've seen it a few times where it's like, well, if you change the thing that's problematic, then all the fans who only care about the former canon get really mad at you. And if you change it so it's not and if you don't change it, then everybody that knows it's problematic gets mad at you. Obviously, I'd rather err on the side of being as non-problematic as possible.
Right.
And that's, I think, where we usually fall with our projects is like the integrity of the canon does not hold up to 2019 scrutiny. So we need to fix that. But yeah, it's not always an easy thing, because sometimes you do have a fan base that often it's a vocal minority. It is very rarely, from what I've seen, like the position of the entire fan base is that you ruined it by doing this thing.
Right.
I think all of us would have to take both hands to count how many things we've ruined, according to certain people.
Yes.
But there's always a vocal minority that's going to say that you ruined it, whether it's because they think you sanitized it or because of quote unquote PC culture or, whatever. But I'd rather not offend people, especially people from any marginalized community. So
one of the things that actually weirdly heartened to me when I was struggling with this about 8 or 9 years ago is the Transformers fandom. Because
I love you in the Transformers fandom. I'm sorry.
Because boy howdy, if you think that people are angry in the World Darkness community, you have nothing to what the Transformers community was like when the first couple of Michael Bay films came out.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
And there's the Transformers Wiki, which is a fantastic resource if you're a Transformers fan.
The Transformers Wiki is actually hilarious, and I'm not a Transformers fan, but there's so many funny, like, asides and weird things and whatever. Like, I 100% do recommend the Transformers Wiki just to find random pages.
No, I completely agree. It is hilarious, and it's very in-depth, and also it's aware of how nitpicky it can get about itself. And so they actually have an entire page. It's literally just called Ruined Forever. And it says that these are the amount of times that Hasbro has ruined the Transformers franchise forever, and links to every single time fan outrage has blown up about some kind of minor creative decision. And it's a long page. It's not a small thing. They spent time and effort to explain to people this has been ruined forever. And so looking at another fandom and going, oh, other people not only recognize this, but that community can at least go, okay, yeah, we're kind of jerks about this occasionally. It was really helpful for me, because it made me realize that you're right. It's not the whole community that feels this way. It's a small amount of people, but luckily, at least in the Transformers community, and I'm seeing it more in our community as well, people are standing up and saying, actually, you're kind of just being a jerk here.
Yeah, I think too, like, I don't know, it feels a little different to me to go, like, I'm mad at Hasbro, the toy corporation, or I'm mad at Michael Bay and his billions of dollars, who literally does not care what you think, than to be like, I'm mad at this freelancer that works out of their house and, doesn't make a ton of money and whatever. Or like, yeah, it still feels more personal sometimes.
No, I agree. It does. But here's the thing it took me years to figure out is that to a lot of people, there is no fundamental difference.
No, it's an interesting disconnect, isn't it?
Yeah, they say Onyx Path did X, Y, and Z. They're not thinking Rich Thomas did X, Y, or Z, or Dixie Cochran did X, Y, or Z. They're thinking this monolithic corporation, which is in their head identical to a Hasbro or a Paradox or a White Wolf or a EA or whatever.
Don't we have 3 permanent employees?
Yes, we do.
two permanent employees or 3, and then like a bunch of freelancers. Like, I'm not a permanent employee. Neither Eddie or Matthew. We're all on like long-term contracts. So yeah, like, folks that it's weird because this is like a totally different tangent, which we can talk about some other time, but like Onyx Path gets bumped in a lot with like Wizards of the Coast and White Wolf and stuff like that. And like, we're not that big. We're not anywhere near that big. We are a bunch of freelancers working out of our houses, just like most other indie companies. I'd say that we're slightly above what a lot of people would call indie.
Right.
And that's partially just because of who we have. Yeah. Sorry,
that's something. That's something I know we've discussed briefly in the past. Is Onyx Path an indie company? And yeah, definitely something we can revisit in another episode. But it's, again, speaking of that disconnect, I think people associate because the games we produce, a lot of the games we produce are pretty high profile in the hobby, even if the company isn't, in a measurable standard the same. It makes some people feel entitled to treat us like we are the big bad corporation. And in honesty, there are so few big bad corporations in this industry. It's it's very much a misnomer, and I can see why fans get so, and it's not always fans, sometimes it's writers, sometimes it's ex-writers and ex-developers. I can see why they get so passionate about the material that they then feel like you're saying, Dixie, that something we've written or something we've edited or something we've developed has ruined the game for them. And so they feel entitled to take it out on us as individuals, as representatives and mouthpieces for big bad Onyx Path. How dare we make that decision? But that level of dissonance where you just don't recognize that the person you're speaking to is just someone who is fortunate enough to be writing these games. We aren't. We're not the license holders, and even if we were, we wouldn't deserve that kind of harassment. And I don't just limit that to Onyx Path. I'm not trying to say poor us. We are constantly on the receiving end of harassment. Every role-playing game company, every single, I guess, company that deals with any kind of interest is subject to this kind of harassment. But of course, speaking personally, it's something we experience a fair amount of.
Yeah, that's another caveat I probably should have thrown out at the beginning, is that we're talking mostly about our personal experiences or things that we've observed. But if I went on to all the things I've observed, I could just sit here and list role-playing game companies or creators for the next half hour who have been harassed, and I probably wouldn't hit them all. Like, I see this all the time, whether it's on Twitter, on my personal Facebook, because a lot of my friends are in the industry in one way or the other. This is industry-wide, hobby-wide. Somebody's going to get pissed at you for doing something.
Right. And I know, like, we talk about this, but there's also a scale thing. Like, the things that we're talking about here in the RPG industry, I've seen my friends in the video game industry who deal with 10 times that.
Yeah, same.
To the point where they had been chased off of Twitter or Facebook because it's gotten so bad. So, I mean, it's while it is the same and definitely applies across the board, sometimes the scale can really make a change. I mean, like, just recently, to pull a kind of ludicrous example, was Final Fantasy VII. They're doing a remake version of Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
And there was a interview with the Japanese producer. It was done in Japanese. And so someone took a slice of it, put it up line, and slightly mistranslated it to assume that one of the characters was going to have her breast size reduced. And
I saw that. The Tiefel card scandal, right?
This. Yeah. They were outraged about it. And it turns out, no, what as you're saying was they're giving her a sensible bra, and so it's like just going to look like a woman who's in a fighting position would do when she was wearing something appropriate to that situation.
My God.
Right.
How far we have fallen. We are giving women sensible clothing in video games.
What? This is crazy. I want to have breasts of like just 3 planes, like old Tomb Raider, But
no more boob plates. That's all I ever ask.
Right.
No more chainmail bikinis. No more boob plates.
But the thing is, it was, I think, generally a good decision. But there were a lot of people who were going after anyone they could find about this over something that, frankly, is pretty ridiculous. On the flip side, there's a big outrage with Borderlands 3 right now because there's been a voice actor change, and some of the circumstances around the voice actor for Claptrap and why that person was changed is pretty controversial. So, I mean, it's a weird, fuzzy line, but like in our industry, it occasionally gets really big, but usually we're looking at a scale of like 20, 40, 50 people. It can still hurt really bad, and it can still feel awful, and it can still be very scary. But at a certain point where when you're looking at thousands of people, it almost becomes noise.
Right.
Yeah. It's a question of scale in a way, because and by no means am I saying it's better to harass people in a bigger industry, but if
you're gonna harass anybody, go harass Steven Spielberg.
Right. Yeah, and now I'm going to say but, which is always the death toll. The idea of, I guess, if someone for a massive video games company gets harassed, in a way, to sound dramatic about it, their screams are kind of lost in the noise, the rumbling train of their video game that's being published. And when they fall off that train, the fans en masse don't care because that video game is still going to be released, and that's horrible.
Yeah.
In our case, because everything does often feel a lot more personal, the teams are a lot smaller, our projects are a lot smaller, and this industry is a lot more close-knit. When something happens, and in a way this is a good thing, it often, and it certainly should, become known, because what we should have the strength to do as an industry, as colleagues, is be able to band together against things like this. We should be able to defend each other. We should be able to stand up for each other if possible. And because if someone falls off of the RPG train, to keep using this metaphor, it's, from a productivity standpoint, it will severely derail the book that's going on, but it will genuinely ruin someone's professional career, their personal life. Harassment can take a massive, massive toll on someone who is putting themselves at the front of a niche interest that, that there's, once you're out of it, that's it. That's kind of a really horrible brew, whereas, I don't know, that anonymity of the bigger industry seems to at least afford a way of getting back into it. I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but again, speaking from personal circumstance, when everything was going on with V5, and I received a fair brunt of that, there were definitely occasions where I just felt I wanted to get out of this industry. Enough people were making up bullshit about my role in various things, and things that I didn't call out, that I had no opportunity to call out. And even having former colleagues going online and making up spurious crap, calling me a quisling for working for a company that would put out a game as abhorrent as Vampire the Masquerade. I just thought, well, the pragmatic side of me thought, oh, come on, focus on something that's worth your time. But on the other hand, it was, of course, deeply hurtful that people I had worked with in the past, and even fans who had appreciated my work in the past, were so readily boarding this outrage that was completely, to my mind, of course, this is my opinion, completely misdirected and channeled in the wrong way. It was almost entirely personal attack for me. No one was critically appraising my work and saying, well, this is the way it could have been done. It was all, you horrible neo-Nazi bastard. And none of that was true. So, yeah, it was very unpleasant.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that, unless in the case of actual credible threats, like the person, who found out where you worked or whatever, like, unfortunately, the best thing to do is to kind of ignore it.
Yeah.
Like, if you start arguing with these people, it's not going to go well for you. And, if you have friends that want to argue with them on your behalf, that's always fun. Like, I've definitely got a couple of friends I can think of right off the top of my head who are more than happy to go to bat for people. Because it's almost amusing to them. But you like, if you respond to stuff on your own sometimes, aside from making very formal statements, it's really hard because people are just going to think, oh, they're denying it, or they're going to read something into your reply, or they're going to get excited that you just engaged them and double down on everything. So yeah, generally, as far as like the online stuff, like I said, unless there's a credible threat and you actually report that to somebody, then that's the best way to go about it. And if that means you take a break from social media or something and just focus on your work, then that's often the best way to do it.
And I mean, on top of it, something we've mentioned in other podcasts is that we're a distributed office. I mean, which is in a nice way of saying that we're all working in isolation, except for the times we formally get together. So it's one thing when you're working for a company that has like a PR department or an HR department, and other colleagues you could talk to and go, oh, yeah, that guy's jerk online, whatever. It's harder when it's just you by yourself looking at a screen and people saying horrible things.
Yeah, I mean, even with the controversies for V5 and stuff, like we kind of touched on here, even me, like I was affected by that, and I don't work for White Wolf. I did not write any of the material. Nobody mentioned me by name. Nobody ever once came after me. But because some people were associating Onyx Path with this stuff, I was freaked out. You know, I hadn't been working here very long. I had been doing this for about 4 months at the time. And I know I talked to you a couple times, Eddy, and kind of went, you know, I don't know that I'm equipped to deal with this. Luckily, I never got into it. It blew over. They, you know, I think most things got cleared up. But yeah, like, it's not something I was quite ready for.
And I remember, like, it's kind of built off of Matthew's point, but also I remember when I was talking with you about it, is there's always an instinct of to say something. You know, you defend yourself.
That was the hardest part, was watching people, like you were just saying, Matthew, people saying shit about you. Like, I'm your friend. And if we were in public and someone just walked up to you and was like, you're a jackass, I'd be like, hey, what the fuck? Like, you know, like, yeah. I'm big on defending my friends, and it was really hard not to go on every Facebook post and every tweet and whatever and just be like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, he's a perfectly nice person, and they're like, no, we know he's a bad man. And I'm just like, I'm just not gonna say anything.
Well, so I was gonna finish because I got a great piece of advice. I was at a local Atlanta video game conference called Siege. I go there every couple of years, and it was one of those times where it's like, if you've been to these kinds of shows, there's I got an hour and a half to kill. I'll just pick a random panel to sit in, you know. Yeah. I don't have anything else to do. And so I went to the community management panel, and they had a bunch of community managers there. And they got to talking about a variety of things, like how to promote your game and whatnot. And I picked up a couple of interesting tips. But they got on the topic of what do you do when there's a harassment campaign against your company, and how do you advise your developers to respond? And they said something that's really, really resonated with me, which is that they tell their developers, if it feels good to say it, don't say it.
That's probably
if you're just saying
true.
it to make yourself feel better, it's probably not going to actually help at all.
Yeah, no, I actually really like that.
But anyway, Matthew, you were going to say.
Well, it was actually in relation to that 4 month into when Dixie started working for Onyx Path. I think that was so. I was told that there was someone who was online saying that I had been responsible for writing the first playtest document for V5, and I hadn't touched it and had nothing to do with it. And it was building up enough steam at this point that I did feel the need to come out and say, I didn't do this. And I emailed the person because I knew them and said, I'm not attached to this. Please don't go around telling people that I am. And they responded a bit snippy, but they said, okay, fair enough. And then a few months later, when yet another thing to do with V5 caused shockwaves across the industry, this person came up again and said, Matthew Dawkins lied to my face to say that he wasn't involved with this at all. But look, he is involved in it. And I had, and I still have, the contract that I signed to work on V5 that was signed subsequent to my conversation with this person where I said I wasn't involved in it, because I wasn't involved with it at the time. And I thought, do I just send a copy of this contract to this person to say, shut your mouth? You don't know what you're talking about. You are making this up. I have evidence right here, physical evidence, if I printed it off, that I was not involved at the time that you say I was. But then I thought that it's not going to do anything. This person, this harasser, is so committed to tearing me down for whatever reasons, real or imagined, that I could send them all the evidence in the world. I could come up with the best arguments. I could go on YouTube and put out a massive confessional and martyr myself or what have you, and it wouldn't stop. And that's the thing I've found with people who are committed to harassment. It's not a happy ending for this podcast by any means. It's that people who want to harass, who derive enjoyment out of tearing people down, whether ostensibly it's because they don't like their work or whether it's truthfully just because they don't like those people, they'll just find new reasons to do it. They will just construct reasons to do it if they can't find anything with a grain of truth that they can latch onto. And it obviously makes you as the victim lose complete respect, if you had any, for the person doing it to you. But I think what really saddens me about it are the sheer number of people at bandwagon without, at least this one person who is demonstrably lying about what they're accusing you of. They have an agenda. The people who are following them are just following them, and I find that almost worse. Sorry, you carry on.
That's fine. You haven't interrupted in a while, so I thought I'd tell that. But no, it's I had a very similar incident where there was someone who's spreading objectively false rumors about me, and someone who I considered a friend at the time, more like an acquaintance, but still someone I had spent physical time with in the same space and had a pleasant experience with, started repeating this. And I was like, hey, just so you know, you can ask me. By the way, that's false. And I got the response back. It's like, well, I'm not sure what's true or what's false. And there's both sides. It's like, no, there's not both sides. That's false. I'm telling you right now, that information is false. And they quibbled about it. It's like, cool, we're done. And I have since not spoken to them because it's like, I can't, if I'm telling you the sky is blue and you're going, well, I mean, it could be green. It's like, no, it's not. It's blue. It's just objectively not true. And you're debating the point. Then clearly we have nothing more to discuss because you're not willing to even listen to the fact that I'm telling you this is actually not, this isn't a matter of interpretation. This is a false statement,
Right.
So it can be very frustrating. I have lost a few people that I consider friends as a result because I just can't live in a world where people could look at me and go, well, maybe you are kind of a jerk. Then we're not friends. That's the definition of not being friends. If you look at me and go, yeah, you're probably a jerk, we're done.
I mean, we can all be kind of a jerk, but that's just normal.
Well, there's a difference between having, that's fair. I mean, there's so many times like going, hey, this thing about you bothers me. I'd like to talk about it and resolve it. That's what friends do.
I know. I just find that sometimes I'm a jerk on purpose, usually to assholes.
Well, that's true too. I mean, that's fine. I embrace your jerkness, Dixie.
Yay. Yeah, so we've talked a lot about online stuff just because that's most of what we've experienced or what we're going to experience in this industry. I do want to talk a little bit about in-person stuff and when things might cross the line, whether it's at conventions or even just one-on-one. Like, some stuff online feels a little bit different than others. Like, if you're just getting a bunch of tweets and emails directed at you, it's like a harassment brigade, that's one thing. But if someone just like doesn't know when to stop a conversation or stop a forum thread, sometimes that happens. And that always feels a little weirder because once you've engaged with somebody, like willingly, and it turns sour, that can be one of the hardest experiences to get out of. I know, especially just from my experience as a very petite woman, if someone engages with me at a con, especially if it's like not at the booth, and I don't really know what to do sometimes. I've never felt in danger or anything. I know other friends who have. Especially, like I said, late night, you're at a convention, you're all at a bar, you gotta walk home, someone tries to walk home with you, you don't want them to, that kind of thing. And if your friends are already gone, whatever, let's talk more about that kind of stuff. Obviously there's sexual harassment, and then there's just the won't leave you alone, which isn't harassment, but sometimes you want to, it feels like it.
Well, particularly if they want to talk to you about what they don't like.
Well, okay, that's one of the worst things. I'm sorry, but if you want to have an actual conversation with a creator about like one thing in a game that maybe you didn't enjoy, or, once again, there's that constructive criticism versus whatever. But if you just want to sit there with a creator at like PAX Unplugged or, Gen Con or whatever, and just give them a litany of their sins in person, that's weird. Don't do that. Like, just don't do that.
And I wonder how much of that is fueled by, to get a bit, I guess, sociological. I don't know how much that is fueled by online culture, influencing the way people feel they can behave. Because we've experienced, I know we've all experienced at Gen Con where people have come up to the booth and decided to rant and rave about how much Requiem sucked and how it killed Masquerade and all of the rest, while the Requiem developer is stood right there, or while the Requiem developer is the person being addressed.
Yeah, or how, Changeling the Dreaming is so much better than Changeling the whatever it is, like whatever thing it is. Like, don't Edition War in front of me. I like all of them.
Yeah.
Don't. And even when it came to some of the V5 stuff, people would occasionally come to me at like a Gen Con or whatever and be like, oh, all these people, and I'd be like, they're my friends. Like, you realize I know them.
Yeah, I get that.
Right?
Some fans who come over to do this are probably trying to do it in a misplaced show of solidarity. So if someone was to come up to us and say, I really loved V20 more than V5, that's fine. Stop there. That's all you need to say. So, well, we've still got lots of V20 products on sale. Oh, what products did you really enjoy? Start talking about the positive. What is it that you loved about V20? Don't tell us about everything you hate about V5, because frankly, what do you expect us to do? To take you aside and conspiratorially say, what I really hate about V5? It's this. All these bits that I wrote, they suck, don't they?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the thing. Is like, you don't always know who you're talking to when you're at a booth. And you also don't, just because you might be able to identify Matthew, Eddy, and myself, for instance, maybe you don't know what Megan Fitzgerald looks like or Neil Price. So maybe you're standing there talking shit about a game like Scion when Neil and Megan, who both work on it, are right there. Like, you just don't always know. Like, I don't know what most RPG creators look like. The only reason I'd expect any of our listeners to know what I look like is because of the freaking, cover art. Like, that looks like me. That is what I look like. But, like, you might not know what everyone looks like, and you might not know who's around, and you might not know whose feelings you're hurting. So, I've had people straight up, kind of right after I became the lead on Exalted and Chronicles, I have had folks talk shit about Chronicles games right in front of me, and I've had folks talk shit about Exalted Third. And I'm like, cool, I'm in charge of that. That's my line. Yep. Usually in hopes that they'll shut up. I'm like, maybe if I tell you, you'll stop telling me I suck. Because it's a little weird. And then like I said, that's not even adding in sexual harassment. And then sometimes people are just overeager, and I get that. Like, I totally understand you're excited. I understand people are excited about talking to people. We want you to talk to us. We absolutely do. If we're at a convention and we're not, like, obviously in a meeting of some sort, we want to talk to you. I love talking to fans. I'm all about it. Like, I will answer your questions as well as I can. But if you've been talking to me for an hour and a half and I'm like, looking around, I'm probably really hungry or I have to pee or something. So just being a little bit like self-aware, I think is super helpful. I have had hour-long conversations with fans that were delightful, like absolutely delightful. And I'm not always, opposed to that. But like, body language is really important, because at some point you have to realize, like, we are married to the booth. Like, I can't leave for the most part.
Right.
So I can't get away from uncomfortable conversations.
And also, I mean, something else that I think sometimes people forget is that Dixie is the rare exception. A lot of us are introverts. A lot of us, when we are talking, it is the nature of energy for us.
Talk to all RPG creators. We're all extroverted. Wait, no.
Right.
That's a small percentage. I forgot about that. I'll talk to you for an hour. Leave Eddy alone.
It's fine. I don't mind talking for an hour, but also there's a point where it's like, I gotta go, and I don't have a valid reason. I don't have a meeting to go to or a thing I have to go to. It's just, I'm done. I have expended all my social energy, and I need to go.
Yeah, I've seen you be done at cons before, where I was like, once again, as an extrovert, I'm always going to remind myself that you're not mad at me. I'm like, have I pissed Eddy off? And I'm like, no. Eddy wants to go sit quietly in his hotel room.
Yes.
He wants to go take out his hearing aids and read a book.
Right. And then luckily, again, because we've developed a relationship, we're better about understanding both sides of that, and also when you get to know someone better, it's less energy to expend. It's like, I can spend more time talking to you now than I could before when we just first met again after 10 years, because I forgot. You're not going to remind me, but I'm going to keep bringing it up because I think it's funny now.
Okay, cool.
But I mean, everyone's wired differently. Everyone's got different things, and just being, like I said, being a little aware of body language and signals, or just going, "Hey, it's been a minute. I'm sorry. Am I taking up your time? Let me know, and I'll just go." Just saying something like that allows people to quietly excuse themselves, because otherwise you get what I fondly enjoy calling the Irish goodbye, where you just go.
Oh no, I am the best at just ghosting out of a situation, which is something that I had to learn in my goth club days. Because if you said bye to one person, you were there for another 45 minutes saying bye to everybody.
Yes.
And then you were home at 3:30 in the morning and you hated yourself the next day. So like I started just doing this thing where I'd be like, I got to go to the bathroom because the bathroom was by the door. I'd go to the bathroom and then I would just leave like right afterwards. And people next time I was there were like, did you just leave last time? And I was like, yeah, I was tired. I had to go.
Yeah, I've also gotten to the point where I say, hey, I'll be right back. And then you go.
You're lying to people. That's rude.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes I've got to, though. I mean, sometimes I have no other option.
Yeah, no, I am, yeah. Either way, point is, don't corner somebody and force them to talk to you for a long time. Like, understand that most of us are happy to have those conversations as well as we can, but that we are also human beings with needs. And that sometimes there's other people waiting to talk to us, too. So
It's not always easy, and by no means are we painting all shades of harassment with the same brush. It's one thing to have someone setting up a brigade against you online to tear you down and ruin your career and personal life, and it's quite another to have someone come up to you at a convention and want to speak to you for 20 minutes about negative things. Those are entirely different experiences, but they're still different types of harassment. And I know at least briefly, I think we were going to discuss sexual harassment, and that's. Do you want to lead on this one, Dixie?
I can. As to your last point, yeah, go ahead.
I'll just say, if you don't mind, I would actually take a little bit about this because it's something I don't think gets discussed a lot.
Perfect. So let me finish his last point real quick.
Yeah.
I said one thing to say, which is that I think there's a difference. Like there's almost a category I would call unintentional harassment.
Yes.
Where you don't realize the person is feeling harassed. One thing that I'm super extroverted, I love people, but one thing that will turn me off is if somebody is over familiar with me. Like if they approach me thinking that we're best friends because they either know me from the podcast or they know some of my work or whatever. And that's weird to me. Is when somebody like if I've talked to you and we have formed any kind of connection, if we're friends on Facebook, whatever, that's great. We can be friends, like I will be fine with you approaching me in a friendly manner. Then there are people who either online or in person have approached me and started like asking me all these questions and like talking to me and like acting like we have a connection that we frankly don't have. And I close up when that happens. And then I come off as bitchy or like really cold because I'm like, I don't know what to say to you. Like we've never talked.
like the Neil's fired joke.
Yeah. Where it's like, it was funny when we all did it, and then when fans started doing it, it was like, no, you don't know him. Right. Like, if you hung out with us for an evening, you might be able to make that joke. You might think, you might form a rapport. But if you don't have a rapport with somebody of any kind, then, like, maybe approaching with a little bit more, like you would approach any stranger is nice. Love talking to folks. Totally fine if you've listened to every episode of the Pathcast. I understand that you don't know my personality a little bit. And it's something that I've heard other podcasters talk about is this one-sided friendship where like you feel like you're friends with the people because you listen to them talk every week. I have that problem with some of the podcasts I listen to. Like I have hosts that I love. I have hosts that I have listened to talk for 600 hours. I feel like I know them. They have no clue who I am, So if I approached them on the street and was just like, hey, all those deeply personal stories you told on your podcast, let's rehash those. That's weird. That would be weird. I would not do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway, that was just my point about that.
All right. And speaking of deeply personal stories, which is where I'm going, is that I actually debated, we talked about doing this for about a week now, this topic, and I actually debated until this very moment whether I was going to talk about it or not, but I think it's worth talking about. Okay. I have been physically sexually harassed at conventions. That people who have kissed me against my will, who have tried to have sex with me against my will. And I mean, it's one thing that we talk about it a lot. A lot of conversation is framed in the male sexually assaulting women perspective, and it's very valid. There's a lot of it, and it's horrible, and it needs to fucking stop.
It does happen to a greater degree, but
right, no, I agree.
Men still get sexually harassed by people of any gender.
Absolutely, and so I mean, and it's frustrating because, in a weird way, I think it comes from the same place we talked about earlier. It's like, well, I like you so much that I feel this connection to you because I love your work or whatever, and I want to express that. And it's like, but I don't want that. And that's a problem. So, I mean, it's while we can sit here and say, oh, I understand where it comes from, it still makes it really unokay. I mean, I'm pretty open about the fact that I'm in a polyamorous relationship. That doesn't mean I'm going to hook up with every random person I meet. I don't hook up with anybody anymore. I don't do that anymore. That's not a part of my life.
There's a weird swath of people who think that polyamorous means up for anything all the time.
Right.
And that's not.
No.
Maybe for some people that's the case, but that's not always the case. And that's very rarely the case, I find. Even people who are in 6 or 7 different relationships of varying natures doesn't mean they're up for anything all the time. That's a strange thing to place on somebody.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, it's one of those things that in my head I can go, okay, I can kind of see where you got to that point, but also, again, read the room, have a conversation, ask for consent. These are all things that are important. But, I mean, you can even take those things and extrapolate them out to our previous conversations. Hey, is it okay if I talk with you for a little bit about this topic that's been bothering me? That's consent that really helps to keep that frame. Or like, hey, I'm really struggling with this book you worked on. Can you help me to understand how it's supposed to work? Is way better than saying the developer got dropped in the head. It's like asking for consent to engage in a conversation, any kind of relationship is really, really helpful. But particularly when it comes to what can go into sexual harassment. If you're not sure if it's sexual harassment, it probably is, and maybe you should ask.
Yeah, like I don't like being touched by people I don't know. If I know people, I'm very touchy-feely. Like, I am totally fine with, like, people touching my arms, whatever, like, whatever. But I have had strangers at conventions, like, touch the small of my back at the bar. And I almost decked that guy.
Oh,
like,
geez.
I am... That is such an intimate place to touch somebody.
Yeah.
I was not okay with that. Did he grab my ass? No. Did he do anything that was, like, technically super inappropriate? No. But I felt so gross. And I did tell him not to touch me, and then he called me uptight, essentially, because that's what happens. Right. So, like, I don't like doing much more than shaking hands at cons, because, first of all, because I can sanitize my hands, because cons are gross in general. Right. You're touching board games, you're touching card games, you're touching people, you're touching books. Everybody has touched everything else. Yeah. So the last thing I want is to, have those germs all over me. I'm not germophobic, but there's a lot of germs at cons. And then, secondly, like, don't put your hand on my shoulder if you don't know me. For God's sakes, don't put your elbow on my head because I'm short. I will deck a person for that. I don't want to threaten violence, for real. Like, I'm not a violent person, but my gut reaction if someone touches me, especially from behind, if I don't know them, is to whirl and, like, hit somebody.
Well, you want to get them away from you as fast as possible.
I have the same lash out reaction. When we were at Midwinter earlier this year, someone grabbed me from behind around the throat. I thought, what were you thinking? Because my immediate reaction, and I think the only reason I didn't, was I was in Rich and Eddy's company. We were at breakfast, and I thought, well, I've got to behave. There was enough, I guess, pressure from the social situation that made me, I guess, cool my jets. And yeah, but when someone grabs me from behind, especially around the neck, my reaction is to strike out with my fist. Yeah. And it isn't because I want to hurt someone. It isn't because I'm a big, strong man that wants to assert my dominance or anything like that. It's because someone's grabbing me from behind, and I don't like that. And why would anyone like that? Is how it works in my mind. I'm sure some people do. But the automatic assumption should be, introduce yourself first. Well, and ask, would you mind if I put my arms around you?
All right, there's a weird exception you want to bring up real quick. If someone comes up behind me and says my name, I'm not going to hear those, right? That you do want them to tap me on the shoulder to let me know they're there.
Right. A tap on the shoulder is a little different.
No,
I agree. If someone taps me on the shoulder, I turn around thinking, oh, someone would like to get my attention.
Right.
If somebody puts their hand on my back or anything like that, I'm thinking this person's being too intimate. Well, my thoughts kind of go two ways at once. One is, oh my God, I don't like this. But the other thought is, this must be someone I know. Like,
Right.
because who would touch a stranger? And that's usually what keeps me restrained enough to kind of turn and go like, okay, who is this person? And usually if someone does touch me from behind, it's someone I know. But on those rare occasions, like man at bar at Midwinter, don't touch me. Like,
No, completely agree with that.
I was standing outside with our friend Mary. That's one of her favorite stories, where this guy came up and I forgot what he touched her on her shoulder. He said something. He did something weird, and my immediate reaction was, "Did you fucking know that guy?" And she's like, "No." And she's being polite because it's Meredith, and Meredith is the most polite, wonderful ray of sunshine I've ever met in my entire life. And so she's like, she was amused that my reaction was to get mad and to be like, what the hell? Why did that guy touch you? Like, because, you know, as women in general, we are socialized to be polite, to not piss men off, to not do anything that might cause a man to commit violence against us. And that's not good, but it is the way that we are socialized.
Yeah.
The fact that I tend to go more to fight probably means I'm gonna get hurt someday, honestly, if you really want to be realistic about it.
Yeah.
And that's not great. It's not a great part of our society, but women are often, we are taught to just be polite to people and hopefully they'll go away.
Yep, it's the that expected response of "I'm sorry, I've got a boyfriend." You know, that if a guy hits on a girl in a bar and she's not interested, she's supposed to apologize for it. That is the automatic assumption. Obviously, it's incorrect. That oh, I'm sorry, I've got a boyfriend. You're not sorry. You don't need to be sorry. And you don't need to explain your reasons for not being interested. But
yeah, it is really sad that I'm not interested is not just like an okay response.
Yeah.
Because, the response can be, and unfortunately often is, in the experience I've heard of anecdotally, if you say, I'm not interested, you get that, well, you're entitled response from the person hitting on you. I know I've certainly heard a lot from some of our writers who, to take it back online for a second, I know we are winding up, but we obviously get a lot of contact from fans online via private message, and those of us who have emails via websites or whatever sometimes get via email, but most of the time it's through Facebook or Twitter. And a lot of our women writers get messages that will hit on them or will make inappropriate comments, or will just message them to say, "You're really pretty." And if you've not been invited to make a comment like that, I genuinely don't know what's going through someone's head in that sense. And often the response will be, that's very nice, I'm sorry, I've got a boyfriend, or I'm not interested. At which point the switch flips on the person that sent that initial message, and it's, oh, well, I was just being nice.
Yep. You know, if you ever want to get a lot of examples of that, there's a subreddit called Creepy PMs. That is just nothing but that. It can be very not safe for work, but it is all of the people who, you know, got the immediate picture of genitalia or that kind of thing, where they go like, "Hey, you're pretty," and the person's like, "Oh, I'm just, you know, looking for friends on here. I'm not trying to date anybody." And then the person's like, "Well, you're a stuck-up bitch." And it's like, oh, so I'm not pretty anymore, I guess. Or like, oh, you were ugly anyway. Like, that's not what you thought 30 seconds ago, weirdo. But it's a very weird switch, because like it's a thing where the person who's sitting on the other person, they have to salvage their ego somehow. And sometimes you're just not interested in somebody. I can think somebody is objectively attractive and not want to date them. Like, it's not hard. That's how we have friendships with people that we could be attracted to. You know, that's how we have friendships with people of whichever genders we are attracted to. Like, you could be fine with somebody, think they look fine, but not be into them that way.
And of course, it makes you wonder whether to get into the mind of the harasser for a minute. Let's say I sent Eddy a message, and I know Eddy very well, or at least reasonably well, and I sent Eddy a message saying, "You look really sexy in your latest Facebook photo." It would be pretty out of seeming with my behaviour, but let's say I did it.
Yeah, I'd be very confused, but go for it.
Yeah, and Eddy responded and said, "Oh, that's nice of you to say. I'm not really sure what tree you're barking at, but I'm not interested." Now, because I know Eddy, I'm not going to then respond and say, "Well, fuck you, Eddy. I wasn't interested anyway. How dare you? You stuck-up bitch." But because you don't have that personal connection with the harasser feels like they have the entitlement to call you names, to be crude to you, as if you would do that to anyone that you actually know. Mm-hmm. The fact that you have this perception, you harasser, who I'm addressing right now, you have this perception of how this person should act around you. And because they're not conforming to your ideal, that you have the right to then call them a stuck-up whatever, it's a completely alien mindset. You wouldn't do that to your mother. You wouldn't do that to your best friend. So what gives you the right to do this to someone whose books you ostensibly like?
Yeah, what's really strange, and I mean this, once again, this is kind of like we were talking about being physically, sexually harassed. It does happen to men, but I think it happens a lot more to women, because I know that, like, I have admitted attraction to people that I knew, you know, before, people I knew from bars hanging out, or just from my social circle. I just sat down and told people I was attracted to them, and they've said, I'm sorry, I'm not interested. And usually, even if it hurts a little bit, I've kind of been like, okay, because I'd like to stay friends with them, or at least friendly. Be like, no big deal. Like, I famously told a gentleman a few years ago that I liked him about a day before he announced he was dating somebody else. I just didn't know. I just didn't know they were dating. And I felt like a little bit of a jackass, but, like, we're totally cool now, you know? Like, because I was cool about it, we're cool. So if you are a fan of somebody and you find them attractive and they're not interested, and you want to stay in any kind of contact with them socially, that's the worst way to react. Is to, you know, freak out or call them names or whatever. Like, move on with your life. Some people aren't interested in you. That's everybody. Nobody's for everybody, you know? It's very, very easy to deal with. I will say, just to our freelancers and A-listeners, I do consider myself a safe space at conventions. If you were ever having actual trouble with people and you know where I am, or you see me, come up and pretend like we're best friends. I don't care. I am that I will do for folks. You know, explain the situation if you can, but I definitely try to be a safe space for everybody. I know that most of the folks at Green Ronin say the same thing. There are a lot of people around who are very, very good at being allies to anybody who is being harassed, especially at cons and things. Yeah.
I've certainly had people come up to me and it's like going, hey, we're best friends now. I need you to be my best friend for a minute. It's like, cool, buddy, we're going to walk over in this direction and we're going to talk about anything that comes to mind until we get you out of that situation. No problem.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to do the same thing. A lot of us have got backgrounds where we've had to deal with this kind of thing, either in a professional or a personal context. So, you know, it's nice to have options. And speaking for the people in this room, this podcast room, I can say that I trust both of them. If I had an issue, if someone came up to me or someone I knew was approached and made to feel uncomfortable, and for whatever reason I was unavailable, I'd be more than happy to send them to Eddy or Dixie and say you'll be okay with them. And it's good to have that, because it isn't just the creators who are at risk of being harassed. And in conventions, in any industry, in any hobby, anyone can be harassed. But it's nice to have some safe spaces in there as well.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, there are often like quiet rooms and things. Obviously, staff members are usually good to go to if you need someone actually removed from a con, if like an incident occurs.
Right.
But yeah, it's not always easy. It's not always easy to speak up. It's not always easy to extract yourself from a situation. And I guess that's your biggest takeaway. Like, there's various bits of advice we can give. There's various things that we can say, but like these things are still happening, and our industry is not perfect, and no industry is perfect. I wish they weren't happening, but they are. They've happened recently. They've happened, you know, there've been controversies that came out of UK Games Expo recently. There've been controversies out of every convention I've ever attended. with somebody or another shooting off their mouth or saying something terrible, or just being terrible in general. And it's going to keep happening, unfortunately, for now. I think that it's getting better. That's something I definitely will say. I know as somebody started gaming in the late 90s, I heard all the horror stories about women at the table and how bad things were, and I never experienced much of that because I always played with a mixed group. And it's getting better and better. I work with tons of women and non-binary folks now. This is not a super male-dominated industry anymore. It still is, but it's definitely getting better as far as
the percentages are
gender
shifting.
Yeah, which I think is awesome. There are a lot of women creators out there doing really amazing things, and a lot of various gender fluid, non-binary folks doing really amazing things, whether it's art or writing or or developing. And I think it's getting better. It's still got a ways to go. Online harassment, ignore it if you can. In-person harassment, find a safe place if you can. Find a safe person if you can. Report people who do bad things. I know it doesn't always go all the way through. I know it's hard for people to report certain things, but it needs to be done.
Agreed.
So, not to end on a super down note, but that is something that we've kind of want to talk about for a while. We've touched on it in a couple of episodes, and I thought it was better for the three of us to discuss it than to bring on a guest and try to be like, bringing it up with them.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't see it too much as a downer. I think it's excellent that there is the opportunity to have advice, and as I say, that there are safe places you can go. Things are getting better. They've got a long way to go, but the fact that we're even hearing about these things happening at conventions with such regularity now is a vast improvement on when they were kept hidden.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I've heard stories about various conventions, and even just my experience going to like Dragon Con from 1999 to now, because I've been going for 20 years. Like, things have improved. People are better about fixing things. People are better about reporting things. It's pretty great.
And also online. I mean, people are getting more and more intolerant of accepting that harassment is the default state online. I mean, even 5 years ago, it was like, well, if you're a professional on the internet, you expect to be harassed. And now more and more people are going, no, actually, this doesn't have to be the case. And more other people in community are stepping up, wanting to make their communities more fun and inclusive. So, I mean, I think even in the online space, it's getting better, too.
Yeah, I can definitely see that in the various Discords I'm in, on Twitter and various Facebook groups. Granted, some of my social media can be a bit of an echo chamber, which is fine because it's my social media.
Right.
But even in some of the Discords that I don't curate and that aren't my echo chamber, I think they're doing really well with a lot of that, with good, strong community support, people taking other people's, allegations seriously, looking into them, all that kind of stuff. So, all right. Well, I'm glad we did finally talk about this. I'm glad I was honestly worried. I was like, are we going to fill some time? And here we are, an hour and 20 minutes in. So I guess that we did fill some time. I know some folks have to go soon to probably wrap this up. So Matthew, where can they find you on the internet if they want to engage with you politely and not harass you?
If they want to engage with me politely and not harass me, they can find me on MatthewDawkins.com, where I have added my Origins award recently. So Modifius won a couple of Origins awards for V5, and damn it, I was involved in the creation of that book, so I will be buggered if I'm not putting the trophy for that up on my website. So come see MatthewDawkins.com, where two-time Origins Award winner MatthewDawkins.com. And by all means, drop me a kind and courteous email. If you do want to harass me, I direct you to jump into a river.
Not like in a dangerous way. He just wants you to be wet and cold.
Yeah,
like a minute.
No, I don't want you to do anything like drown.
Well, actually, as we pointed out, you do live in the water, so I mean, actually would be closer to finding you if they jumped in a river.
Yeah, they just have to stay in the water long enough to come out to sea, and I'll be waiting for them.
Someone's going to draw some like mer-person fan art of you someday, Matthew. It's going to be real weird.
I look forward to it. With squid legs, I hope.
Yes.
I really want you to be wearing your like tweed, like gentleman gamer, like jacket on top, but then just
squid legs.
Squid legs. Eddy, where people find you if they want to say kind things about your work?
I'm always happy to have people tell me how wonderful I am. They can talk to me on Twitter at EddyFate, EDDYFATE. That's also my website, personal website. You can find me on Facebook at EddyWebWriter, or you can find me just about anywhere professionally at Pugsteady or pugsteady.com.
Awesome. If you want to leave me affirmations and pictures of kittens, I can be found at DixieCochran.com. I can also be found as Dixie Cyanide on most social media platforms. Please don't friend me on Facebook if I don't know you. Like once we've met at a convention or something, maybe. Not out of nowhere.
Right.
So, yeah, you can find us at the onyxpath.com and the Onyx Path on most social media. We also have a Discord now that I never remember to plug. And I guess the other thing I should plug is that we're doing the Aberrant Kickstarter next week.
Yes, we are.
So keep an eye out for that, where I'll have an interview with Steve Kenson on the Pathcast coming up next. So we can talk a little bit more about Aberrant. But look at the comic we have on our website and check it out, because I think it's going to be really awesome. I love superhero games. I love the Trinity Continuum. I love everybody that's worked on this project. I think it's going to be great. I haven't even gotten to read it yet, but I need to. But, you know, I'm going to have to read it when I edit it, so I'll just read it then. Whatever. As always, many worlds, one Pathcast.